They were everywhere. Every season, every storyline. And then boom, gone. No reunion, no quiet exit, no final confessional. Andrei and Elizabeth, once a cornerstone couple of 90 Day Fiancé, suddenly disappeared. Not even a passing mention on shows where they used to dominate full arcs. And fans? Noticed immediately. Not because they missed the drama, but because their absence was louder than their presence. During a recent Pillow Talk spin-off ep, sharp-eyed viewers caught something strange. A flash of old footage rolled out during a montage, but when it cut to the present-day commentary, other cast members sidestepped around Andrei's name entirely. No jokes, no reactions. It was an intentional silence, almost like producers were scrubbing them out in real time while acting like everything was business as usual. And if you know anything about how TLC handles cast issues, they never do that unless they have to. Rumors started bubbling fast. Not the usual tabloid fluff, real industry blogs began hinting at something behind the curtain. A possible legal conflict between TLC and the couple. A number was even floating around. $1 million. No official filings confirmed, nothing on record, but the same phrase kept surfacing. Serious contract fallout. Sarah here with Sister Wives Daily. And let me tell you, the moment that figure hit the forums, fans went into full FBI mode, scouring Reddit threads, comparing airtimes, checking Instagram bios like they were crime scenes. And every clue pointed towards something way messier than your average reality split. If this was a storyline, we'd have at least gotten a fight, a meltdown, a messy walk-off that producers could milk for mid-season ratings. But the rollout here was surgical, fast, quiet, tense. And if TLC isn't bragging about their removal, and the couple isn't complaining either, what exactly are both sides hiding? This isn't the first time a 90-day couple abruptly vanished. But it might be the most suspicious. Allegedly, something went down. Off camera, off contract, off brand, and nobody's talking. Yet, what if this wasn't TLC ghosting them, but Andrei and Elizabeth firing the first shot in a behind-the-scenes war no one was supposed to see? Most people think being on a reality show means showing up, getting mic'd, stirring drama, cashing checks. But with TLC, especially on a hit like 90 Day Fiancé, it's way more tangled than that. These aren't simple performance contracts. They're control documents. When cast members sign on, they're agreeing to hand over parts of their voice, image, storyline, and more importantly, control of how they're seen. The ENDA casts a long shadow. It doesn't just cover what happens on screen. It locks cast into silence about production practices, contracts, even pay scales. That's why no one talks openly. If you slip up, you risk getting hit with serious legal threats or financial clawbacks. Allegedly. Why else do you think cast members who built entire fan bases just vanish mid-franchise? Nicole Nafziger, Larissa Lima, Paul and Carini. 1 minute they're doing interviews and posting behind-the-scenes selfies. The next, total blackout. No shows, no spin-offs, no mentions. TLC doesn't fire people publicly. They freeze them out, sometimes even mid-contract. And nobody can say why. This is where things get blurry with Andrei and Elizabeth. Fans believe something contract-related exploded behind closed doors, but not in the way we usually see. It wasn't a scandal that aired. There was no arrest, no public blow-up. Whatever happened, it happened quietly. Which only makes people ask louder. What line got crossed? Some think it may have been about filming refusals. Andrei's behavior toward production on the show had gotten more volatile. He pushed back. He barked at producers off camera. It was styled as alpha tough guy energy. But what if that tension wasn't part of the story? What if it was real friction boiling up that TLC couldn't spin anymore? Others believe it could have been over money. The show rakes in massive ratings, but cast members? They're allegedly paid per episode, and not as much as you'd expect. There's always been resentment brewing under the surface when couples realize how much their image is worth versus what they're taking home. Some play ball, some don't. But the spiciest theory? This wasn't about cash. It was about control. Andrei doesn't like being dictated to. Elizabeth, slowly, stopped playing producer favorite. Together, that makes a dangerous pair in a system that depends on compliance. If they refuse to follow a scripted conflict, or if they threaten to walk mid-contract, TLC wouldn't risk the PR nightmare. They'd pull the plug quietly and enforce the silence. What if this was never a story about breaking a rule, but refusing to play the game at all? There was a time when Andrei came off like your typical fish out of water husband, brooding, blunt, vaguely overconfident. But something shifted. Season by season, his screen time leaned harder into tension. Less funny, stubborn guy with an accent, more antagonistic force barreling through every family event, job dispute, and production confessional with a chip on his shoulder the size of Moldova. Editing doesn't lie, but it does shape. And somewhere between Elizabeth's second pregnancy and their last full season arc, the tone around Andrei took a turn. Scenes that would have once been brushed off as cultural miscommunication were cut sharper. His voice sounded harsher in group scenes. Reaction shots lingered longer after his blow-ups. One moment especially sticks out at Chuck's ill-fated family barbecue, where Andrei told the cameras he didn't care how Libby's siblings felt and that he'd take over the family business if he had to. The vibe shifted from stubborn to steamroll. Still, look closer. Andrei's behavior wasn't out of the blue. It escalated with each new obstacle thrown in his direction. The family ganged up. The finances got tighter. Production kept revisiting old fights. In scenes with producers asking pointed questions during confessionals, Andrei often broke the fourth wall and pushed back, unfiltered. That part wasn't dramatized. It was raw, uncomfortable. You could feel it. He was done playing along. That's where some viewers actually sided with him, not because they liked how he talked, but because they saw a man trying to carve out stability, protect his turf, and escape constant goading, on and off camera. Whether he was overbearing or loyal, aggressive or determined, depended on where you sat. But if you're TLC, that resistance poses a problem. The moment a cast member stops cooperating with the narrative, you have two options. You cut them or you frame them. And if Andrei was already pushing back hard behind the scenes, even threatening to quit unless they backed off, it's not wild to guess editors may have had instruction to shape his arc darker, colder. That kind of pivot isn't personal, it's strategic. Control the image, you control the story. Control the story, you control the viewer. Now add one more layer. Around that time, fans noticed something odd. Less behind-the-scenes footage, less family content, less commentary from the couple between episodes. Were Andrei and Elizabeth already resisting how episodes were being produced? Were they still showing up, but refusing to deliver the drama TLC wanted? There's a theory gaining traction that Andrei wasn't just clashing with cast, he was clashing with producers themselves, and that conflict might have been the final straw. Elizabeth has never been the loud one. Not really. While Andrei bristled on camera, she played the smoother role, mediator daughter, supportive wife, new mom balancing family chaos and a reality contract. But if you watch closely, she was signaling something long before the couple disappeared from TLC airwaves. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, but it was calculated, controlled, intentional. In one of her final public interviews connected to the franchise, Elizabeth answered questions with an odd tension, keeping things generic, sticking to scripted positivity while noticeably skipping over recent plot lines. Dates didn't match up. Past conflicts were presented like they'd resolved on their own. No specifics, no cast mentions. To longtime fans, it felt like she was playing defense, avoiding details that would normally fuel clicks and views. That's not like her. Elizabeth knows how reality TV works. She didn't get this far without understanding the machine. So when she stopped feeding it, something had changed. Then came the social media shift. Gone were the behind-the-scenes clips, the playful throwbacks, the cheeky tune into night posts. Instead, her page turned into a polished family brand. Soft lighting, cozy routines, branded partnerships, no messy captions, no cast tags, no connection to TLC unless you scrolled far, far back. For a woman who'd spent years tied directly to a reality show paycheck, the rebrand was loud, even if she never said a word. It read like soft rebellion, She wasn't breaching anything officially, but she wasn't playing along either. She wasn't dragging TLC, she was disengaging from it. Quietly, gracefully, and fast. Fans who followed their content week to week realized she was pulling herself out of the narrative before it collapsed. She knew something, and she wasn't trying to fight it. She was trying to survive it. People often expect dramatic exits in reality TV, explosive tell-alls, burned bridges, but that only works if you think you have a way back. For Elizabeth, it looked more like a clean break she couldn't announce, one that had to move silently so the lawyers wouldn't move louder. And when a woman who spent years working the algorithm and filming every family holiday suddenly stops promoting the season she's in, there's no spelling it out, because the silence is the message. The question isn't whether Elizabeth was distancing herself, it's what she knew was coming when she decided to step back in the first place. It started as a whisper, an anonymous post tucked in a comment thread on a reality TV gossip board. Something about a major legal threat behind the scenes at 90 Day Fiancé, involving a fan-favorite couple and an ugly fallout with production. The number was shocking, $1 million. At first, most people shrugged it off. Troll bait, click chasers. But then, other accounts chimed in with oddly specific corrections, not denials. Over the next few weeks, that $1 million figure kept resurfacing, always tied to Andrei and Elizabeth. The source that made fans sit up was a semi-credible entertainment leak blog that's gotten a few network tea-drops right in the past. They didn't confirm a lawsuit, but claimed a financial and contractual standoff was underway, quoting an unnamed source close to production. The same post hinted at breach of contract and ongoing punitive efforts, which is industry speak for something way bigger than a lost paycheck. So, what could trigger that kind of fallout? There are only a few options major enough to justify blacklisting a couple mid-franchise. One is breach, violating terms in a signed contract by walking off early, refusing to film required episodes, or publicly discussing production tactics. Another is ENDA violation, especially if private information, behind-the-scenes manipulation, or unapproved disclosures made their way into fan spaces. Then there's the more rare but heavy claim, intentional sabotage, something that would cost TLC money, damage a brand, or call attention to legal practices they'd rather not defend in court. But here's what makes it murky. Public legal filings can typically be searched, and right now, no case between TLC and the couple is on record, which raises a possibility fans often overlook. Sometimes these leaks don't come from network insiders. They start with an ex-staffer, a fired story editor, a crew member with legal beef who wants to throw a wrench into the machine. It happens in this industry, and the timeline here is suspicious. Some initial posts started spreading right after one production associate reportedly left social media in what looked like a quiet purge. Still, none of this erases what is real. The full absence of Andrei and Elizabeth from programming. The coordinated online silence. No promotions. No denials. No appearances. Someone is enforcing consequences. But is it over a contract fracture or a larger rebellion? Because maybe this was never about money to begin with. Maybe the $1 million rumor is just shorthand for what it costs to say no. If you've watched 90 Day Fiancé long enough, you start to see the pattern. Cast members don't always leave in a blaze of glory. They vanish. Quietly. Completely. One day they're on every spinoff. The next, they're gone without a goodbye. And it usually happens not after scandals, but after resistance. Take Larissa Lima. Ratings magnet. Loud, controversial, perfect for TV. But after calling out editing choices and talking openly about production demands, she was suddenly cut, and the show never addressed it. No closure. No reunion message. TLC simply erased her from the brand. Sound familiar? Then there's Paul and Karini. Their story went from compelling to chaotic. And at one point, Paul started posting behind-the-scenes breakdowns that seemed desperate. TLC distanced itself fast. The moment things stopped being controllable, the network going cold was the only clue fans got that something had shifted behind closed doors. Darcy might be better known for her post-show hustle now, but even she faced a pivot. Her arc in the main franchise came to a screeching halt after back-to-back seasons of oversharing, off-screen leaks, and moments that blurred the production boundary. Eventually, she got her own spin-off, separate, compartmentalized. TLC kept the asset, but limited the disruption. All of this points to one thing. When cast get too unpredictable, too vocal, or too unwilling to play along, the machine recalibrates. They either find a new angle to frame you, or they remove you altogether. No confrontation necessary. No press release. The punishment is silence. For viewers, it creates this eerie emotional gap. You invest years watching these people live out messy, real-feeling relationships, and one day, poof, gone. No one from the network explains. The remaining cast won't tell. That intentional vacuum of answers is the answer. Behind those disappearances is burnout, performative fatigue, and sometimes real harm. Reality TV doesn't pay for therapy. It doesn't protect storylines. It protects narratives. And when the cracks in those narratives start to show, it's always the people on camera who bear the cost. Maybe Andrei and Elizabeth didn't disappear. They were removed the same way others were before them, not as punishment for causing drama, but for refusing to deliver the kind the network could control. There's a reason the word difficult lands like a label in reality TV. It sticks. And once the higher-ups start using it behind the scenes, it spreads fast. According to several threads from former crew and adjacent industry insiders, Andrei didn't just push back on production. He clashed. Hard. There were reports of him refusing multiple reshoots, allegedly telling story editors they weren't getting the real story, complaining off-camera about how scenes were being arranged to set him up as the villain, and worse, making that frustration known bluntly in front of the crew. Now, some will say it was ego, that after a few seasons of steady airtime, Andrei saw himself as bigger than the machine, someone who didn't need to say every line, hit every beat, play every scene like a marionette. There were even whispers that he changed his shooting availability last minute or demanded more control over how his family conflicts were edited. On paper, that kind of power grab looks like arrogance. But what if it wasn't pride at all? What if it was self-preservation? He'd spent years being framed as the problem. In the family, in the marriage, in every group event. Watching your name trend online next to harsh words for years straight is enough to make anyone draw a boundary. Andrei may not know the art of subtlety, but he knows loyalty. And to him, choosing to shield his growing family from reality TV wear and tear might have felt like the most husband-father thing he could do. Especially if he believed the producers weren't offering that same protection. Reality shows don't like cast who try to redefine the script. TLC builds momentum out of chaos. When someone starts tampering with that by playing defense, they become a liability. But here's the twist. What if TLC wasn't entirely unreasonable? If a star begins pulling rank, setting conditions, or threatening to walk first, the producers have to push back. It's a risk to credibility, all the more when the show depends on illusion control. This wasn't about one guy having a bad day on set. This was a months-long standoff between someone trying to escape the edit and a production team trained to keep the drama flowing. But then something happened TLC didn't script, and couldn't contain Chuck used to be everywhere. Backyard grills, family dinners, awkward business meetings where half the people stormed off before dessert. The Potthast family was practically its own 90-Day Fiancé spinoff, anchored by Chuck's dream of flipping houses and keeping his kids close, even when they were dragging each other publicly. But fans started noticing a strange silence. Chuck's screen time shrank. Jokes from the sisters? Fewer. Then gone. No Instagram buzz, no behind-the-scenes pictures with cast. It was like the whole family hit mute at the same time. This wasn't the usual plot shift. It felt coordinated. Like a shared decision, not a programming note. After years of letting the show expose their ugliest sides, sister feuds, uncomfortable financial conversations, deeply personal arguments, it's possible the family drew a line and stuck to it. Maybe they realized the damage wasn't worth the screen time. Maybe the fallout off camera got too real. By the final season Andrei and Elizabeth appeared, the family scenes were mechanical. Filler fights, recycled conflicts. It didn't feel lived in anymore. It felt drained. Fans could sense it, the emotional fatigue behind every side-eye and sarcasm. If real boundaries were set after that season wrapped, it wouldn't be surprising. The question is whether they set them as individuals or as a unit. TLC invested years into that storyline. Each sibling had a role. Every conflict was part of a long web of family verse. In-law tension. Losing even one member risked breaking continuity, but losing all of them? That's a creative wipeout. It only makes sense if the resistance came from more than just Andrei and Elizabeth. Imagine the cast realizing they couldn't change the narrative, but they could agree to stop feeding it. What if the whole Potthast clan reached a silent understanding after filming? No more dysfunction for content. No more letting producers spin healing moments into something toxic again. Production depends on momentum. When that stalls, and especially when multiple people begin resisting storylines, the edit can't keep pace. What you're left with is an abandoned arc, missing characters, last-minute cuts that don't fit. Fans didn't just miss the Potthast family. They noticed the holes, the spaces where real scenes were meant to go. Because maybe the drama didn't dry up. Maybe the cast finally stopped letting it be filmed. TLC hasn't said a word. No confirmation, no denial, no quiet press release easing fans into a goodbye. When cast members leave a show this suddenly, you expect something. An Instagram farewell, a producer blurb in an interview, maybe a hint from the network's socials. But with Andrei and Elizabeth, there was nothing. Just a blank space where a family once carried entire seasons. Legally, the silence makes sense. If NDAs are still in effect, and if there's even a hint of legal tension in the background, no one's allowed to speak. Not the production team, not the couple, not even co-stars who might know more than they let on. But silence doesn't erase suspicion. It amplifies it. And for a fan base trained to sniff out drama from subtle signs, the vacuum left by absence only invites louder speculation. When there's no narrative, fans create one. They start reading old interviews like their code, pulling screenshots from deleted posts, zooming in on comment likes. The energy that once went into live tweeting is redirected into TikTok theories and side-channel sleuthing. TLC knows this. In fact, some viewers believe the network prefers it this way. Ask yourself this: what benefits a brand more? Admitting conflict with a star couple or letting gossip do the dirty work? If fans stir the pot, the network keeps its hands clean. If someone leaks, TLC can deny responsibility. It avoids direct accountability while maintaining buzz. Technically, they haven't broken their silence. But functionally, they've still shaped the perception. This blurs into a bigger question. What does it mean when a network stays silent, not just about a scandal, but about a disappearance? What kind of message does that send to cast members who gave years of their lives to the show, only to be edited out like a glitch in the feed? You can't claim loyalty from talent and then retreat when things get unmarketable. And yet, something caught sharp-eyed fans off guard. In a quiet clip from a recent post-show commentary clip, a single line referenced a deleted storyline involving a franchise couple who chose to change direction. It passed quickly, unnamed. But for those tracking the silence, that one tiny clue slipped out and pulled the entire timeline into question. So where are they now? Andrei and Elizabeth have built a life offline that looks spotless on the surface: healthy kids, clean aesthetics, influencer deals, and zero signs of network chaos. But that's exactly why fans still ask. After years of raw arguments, family warfare, and what felt like near unfiltered access to their marriage, the silence isn't calming. It's jarring. This wasn't a subtle fade. It was a precision edit, on both sides, and neither one seems eager to look back. The truth most people don't think about is what happens after the cameras stop. When the microphones are gone and the producers aren't writing your next conflict, reality doesn't just resume. It lingers. Reputations change how people treat you. Storylines cling to your real relationships. And for Elizabeth and Andrei, every on-screen word followed them into rooms where contracts, parenting, and personal dignity mattered more than screen time. So was it a contract blow-up that pushed them out? Maybe. But it might have been something bigger, something more human than fine print. Maybe it was values, a growing discomfort with being reduced to villains, a shifting sense of what kind of legacy they wanted to leave. When your daughter is old enough to Google your name, your season 5 arc doesn't feel so harmless. In the end, what fans have shown over and over isn't that they want their couples flawless. They want them real. Not the kind of real that gets spliced into tearjerker montages, but the kind that says, yeah, that was ugly, and here's why we chose different. Maybe that's the kind of honesty Andrei and Elizabeth could never give on camera, not without losing control of how it would be used. And here's the twist. Years ago in a heated confessional, Andrei snapped, "I don't want to be a clown in your circus." Back then, it sounded dramatic. Now, it sounds like a warning. Because they weren't the only couple to vanish. Another longtime cast member has been missing from screens, hasn't posted in months, and whispers about their off-camera fallout are starting to surface. What we found there might be even wilder than what happened with Andrei and Elizabeth.